Hello, I'm Steve Selby. I'm here to introduce you to the Selby Mantel Clock. This is a gift for David's 40th birthday that I've been working on for a while, and it's been quite an adventure getting this kit together for what hopefully will be a clock that future generations can enjoy if it works out that way. And I'll explain a little more as things go on, but originally started kind of shopping for something different because his 40th birthday is kind of special. So, and Helen and I have talked before that it'd be nice to give a gift that didn't plug in or get outdated or whatever, and not something that people generally keep for any length of time. It'd be kind of nice to find something special, and it's not really easy to do when you first think about it. But kind of accidentally, I was shopping along in Goodwill.com and looking at some really cool stuff they have in there, and I saw these mantle clocks, and I saw this particular one, and it hit me. The looks of it, I thought, were pretty fantastic. I have a couple of mantle clocks already. I'm certainly no expert in them, but I really liked the looks of this particular clock. So I bid on it, ended up winning it. And I thought, well, okay, when it gets here, I'll go ahead and probably replace the insides and put it with a newer movement, maybe something that plugs in and make it more usable as a clock. But when I received the clock, I was pretty shocked at the condition it was in. I mean, it was, faded from, time, but great condition. The mechanism with the higher end mechanism, and it had the nice bezel, the thick bezel and the beveled glass. And it was a couple of nicks here and there, but really looked great. So I did some research and found out that Meguiar's products, which I had plenty of from working on cars with, were really the thing to use on this to restore them. So I had that product and began the restoration polishing process. Basically, is all I did: polish it and wax it, check the mechanism, replace a couple minor pieces, and there we go. One thing that's unique to these Seth Thomas clocks is the finish that they used. It's called an adamantine finish. It's like a plastic laminate they use over the wood instead of a regular paint. I've got a couple of other mantle clocks myself that are painted, and there's no way I can get them to shine like this adamantine finish does. I mean, look at it. It looks almost a mirror finish on these things. They're something over 100 years old. It's pretty amazing and look this good. But it really is a durable finish that's on it, too. It doesn't chip easy, doesn't scratch or anything. So it's like a really nice product that they use to construct these clocks. I really like the contrast of the copper and the brass too, along with that green. I think it's a fantastic looking clock. I've looked at several other clock six since then. I just got lucky on this one, I guess, when I first saw it, because I really haven't found a clock that I like as well as this one. It's not overly done. It's a little understated. It's got high end parts on it. It's in great shape. So I think it's a really nice clock. The etching on these is really special too. I don't know how they did it, but it sure looks nice on them. So here's the rest of the story on the clock. After I received it, I was restoring it, and I got to thinking it'd be kind of fun to have some videos that could go along with the clock so people could kind of see the restoration process and maybe any kind of narration I'd want to put in there with it. And the more I thought about it, I thought, boy, you could really put a lot of information if you had a certain way to present it or in a packet. And I came up with the idea of a binder, which I could put, flash drives in, information and pictures and comments and things like that. It'd be kind of fun to be able to keep with the clock. And I thought about it further. I thought, well, this is a great birthday gift, I think, and it could be something in the future that could be handed down to future generations if you thought it worthy of that. It'd be kind of fun to think about ways that you could include things with the clock that make it fun for future generations to enjoy it and, in fact, add to it. Because it's certainly no reason somebody couldn't add comments or videos or anything to the flash drives. It could be handed down to others in the future, and it'd be kind of a fun thing for somebody to look back and hear the voices of previous generations in comments and pictures and videos and things that happened with the clock. So it's a small enough item, and it can be packed away and brought out at the appropriate time if people didn't have a way to display it all the time or how they wanted to keep it around. So that's kind of the intent and how this thing came about. It wasn't anything I saw anywhere that I kind of came up with this idea of my own. It kind of evolved, basically. I didn't start out to come up with something that might be able to be handed down as an heirloom or anything like that. But I think when I got the clock and the quality was so good and it was such a great condition clock and it functioned perfectly and it keeps great time, and I really like the look of it. I thought, it's kind of a special item. At least I think it is, and hopefully the Dave will like it and future generations will like it if that's what happens to it. It'd be kind of fun to think about how that might all work out. So I included an old Sears catalog, which you'll see pictures of and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, for whoever owns this clock. Here's a video I took of the mechanism, and probably hopefully you can hear ticking in the background if I edit this right. Just kind of how it works. Basically, it's a lot of gears. I don't understand everything and how it actually functions. I know some of it, but for such an old device, it sure seems to be a complicated mechanism when you look at all the gears and what's happening, but pretty unique item. Here's a close-up shot of the actual part that's making the tick-tock sound of it. And that little flat arm down to the right is the pendulum swing that I replaced on it. That's the only thing that was worn and broken on the clock, and just I think after 100 years they wear out and come off, and that's what happened in this case. Here's a shot of me just putting the pendulum ball on there so you can see how it gets installed. It's not much to it. Just kind of hook it on there and give it a little bit of a swing and it'll take off, and that's all there is to it. Here's a demonstration of how you set the time on it. You reach back behind the number 4 in the bezel and just kind of put your knuckles against the back of the clock there and the face of it. Pop that off, and then do your adjustments and push the bezel back on. You can, if it's not sitting against something, just hold the back, give it a push by the 4, and it snaps back on and holds in place. That's all there is to it. Pretty simple. Here's a shot of me lubing the shafts on it with a needle oiler that's included in the packet on the binder. Not much to that, but pretty simple to do. Just a minimal amount of oil on the shafts. That's all it takes for maintenance. Here's a shot of me using the Meguiar's wax on it. I eventually decided to pull the lion's head off of that and get back in behind. I just wasn't happy. It was as close as I could get to the edges. I mean, it was coming out nice and it looked good, but I guess I was picky about it. Those screws came out pretty easily and went back in nicely, and it is waxed and polished behind those heads now. Most of the restoration process was basically doing this and taking some of the pieces off, like the lion's head and the columns and the feet, and get behind it. But basically it was Meguiar's swirl remover and then Meguiar's wax on top of that, probably 6 or 7 times for each area. But it really came back nicely. I was really happy with the results of it, and just the time to do it. It wasn't difficult. It just took several shots at it and it came out great. Here's a clip of me using the Meguiar swirl remover to try and get in as close as I could to the feet. I was really hesitant to pull the feet off because I didn't want them to become loose, because something this old, you never know how it's going to go back together once you take them out for the first time. But I ended up taking them off. I just wasn't happy. As close as I could get to the edges and it looked fine. It really did. I was just being picky, but I'm glad I took them off. I was able to get it waxed and cleaned up behind these feet, and then reinstall the feet, and everything was tight. It was perfect. There's no problems there at all. Worked out great. So here's the binder that I mentioned earlier that's included with the clock. I've included several different kind of items with it, starting off with a couple of original 1906 postcards that a couple people sent to other people for whatever reason. And that top one has a little bit of a story to it that I'll discuss later in this video about the binder. There's some 1906 coins, a dime, a penny, and a nickel. They're kind of fun. I've included a couple of jump drives, a main and a backup that's going to have all the pictures and backup documents and videos included with it. There's a pouch that has various pieces in it. These pointed cotton swabs are really handy for cleaning the shafts and maintenance of the clock using the oil that I've included. The original wind-up key for the clock, which is in great conditions. Sometimes that's rare to have the original key. Here's just some feet pads that I included so we don't scratch the surface. Here's the original pendulum ball. It's adjustable. It came with the clock. It's nice condition too. And here's the needle point oiler for the clock to lube the shafts and different components. Definitely handy to have this stuff, and certainly people can add more to it, rags or whatever they want to put in there that'll help maintenance the clock and things like that. Any kind of hardware or cleaning items can certainly go in there. And here's a letter that I included, kind of explaining the origins of the clock, how it came about, what I thought the intent could be for the clock, being handed down to future generations if it works out that way, and kind of just in detail of, like I say, how it came about and where it can go from here. If people think it's a good idea and keep it going, that'd be kind of fun. Especially for those who get into the future, they can look back at this stuff, and they can certainly add their own letters too, and add to that, and increase the interest in it from people looking back. Here's a directory of the flash drive, and it may be modified by the time you receive it, but that's what it was back at the time. Informational letters included some pictures of the clock, of the original when I got it from Goodwill, and then what it looks like now. Receipt for the clock. There's a picture coming before and after as I was polishing it, kind of how it looked, the differences, kind of stark. Different angles of it as I was restoring it. What it looked like with the columns off and the original dust behind it. More shots of the clock. You can see it really got caked up inside those columns. I'm sure they'd never been off the clock. There's a kind of letter about what things that happened in 1906, informational packets that have multi-page articles about Seth Thomas and the history of the clock and of him, and kind of interesting stuff for somebody who's into that kind of thing in the future if they are so interested. There's an ad that I printed out. It's got original prices of mantel clocks in there, kind of what the ads look like. Here's an ad for an electric car in 1906. Pretty bizarre, but there it is. And here's the postcard I told you about. It's got a monument in it, in this postcard, that actually still exists. If you go to the link up here at the top of the page, you can see this live video shot. It's a live YouTube feed. It's a really nice camera angle of that monument. You can still see it there today. Watertown, New York. And some extra pouches and some paper, and that's about it. So when anything somebody wants to add, they can certainly do it and make this packet complete and fun for future owners. Here's the contents of the binder. There's a sheet in there I didn't pull out, but this is a listing of what's included in the binder. If somebody wants to refer to it or what's in there without going through it all, they can see it right there in the content sheet. Here's the 1906, the Philadelphia Record newspaper included with the kit. It's kind of fun to look through. We did the best we could to put some plastic on the outside to kind of keep it together. It's kind of rough shape, something this old. It's all dried out and kind of funky, but it's got some really fun stuff to read about in there, different ads and stories and things that were going on back then. It's kind of fun to go through and see what was happening. Some of the prices are pretty stunning. Interesting ads for medical procedures and dental work and whatnot, but kind of fun to look at and see what it was like, what was going on in politics, buildings. Included in the package is a 1906 Sears catalog in great condition. Really fun to look through. Some great stuff in there, including mantel clocks, old buggies, and the weird clothing, and all the tools they had and devices, and the prices of everything. It's pretty shocking, of course. And some body improvement tools in there, and doctors and dentists and all kinds of weird stuff. But it's a lot of fun to look through. It's in really amazing conditions for as much as it's been around, I'm sure. But and I think it's a reprint, but it's still a really old one. But it's in great enough condition where it's pretty easy to flip through and enjoy it without worrying about damaging it or anything. So it's just one of those fun things that I thought to include with the clock. It's the same year. Here's a clip of the editing process that I went through in Power Director. Fun software to use. And there you have it. So hopefully in the future, if this works out, that Dave wants to hand it down as an heirloom to Hudson or whoever, and they can keep it going and people can keep adding to the binder with pictures and videos and comments. I think it'd be a lot of fun for future Selbys to look back in the past and keep enjoying this clock. So take care, everybody. Happy birthday, Dave.